Good evening, everyone. If we could go ahead and call our meeting to order, please. If I could ask everyone to please stand for a moment of silence, and then we'll ask Ms. Tackett to lead us in the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Connie. Shall we call the roll, please?
Mrs. Hambrick?
Present.
Mr. Hampton?
Here.
Mr. Lesby?
Here.
Mrs. Lesby Mitchell? Here. Mrs. Tinglesang? Here. Mr. Showalter?
Here.
Mr. Stone?
Here.
Mrs. Tackett?
Here.
Thank you. Each member should have received a copy of the minutes of our last meeting. If you'd like to take a moment to look those over for any possible corrections or additions.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Willa.
Second.
And Greg with the second. If there are no other questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Thank you. And each member should have also received a copy of our latest check register. If you could indicate if you received that document. Thank you. We've got some very special guests with us tonight. So with the council's permission, I'd like to slightly alter the order of our agenda, just to take care of some real special guests here. Everyone, I'm sure, has seen Representative Philip Pratt and Senator Damon Thayer and Judge Executive Joe Pat Covington. Gentlemen, it's good to have you with us.
Glad to be here.
But we've got another special guest tonight that we'd like to even put on the front of the agenda. Council has been working for some time with Rita Thompson and the Not Alone Pregnancy Center to work on a safety baby box. And it's something that other communities have proudly introduced to their community, and Rita and others have been advocating for this to occur in Georgetown, to the extent that Rita's organization has offered to underwrite the cost of this safe baby box, which I think we agree is a pretty remarkable gesture. It took us just a little while to work out all the details, because it does go into a city building, and the lease agreement had to be pretty careful. So it took us a little longer, but we got it all done, and it's on your agenda for approval tonight. Later in the agenda, under the city attorney, we thought it important enough with our special guest here and the full audience here to pull that out and go ahead and discuss item 11A, a municipal order approving a lease services agreement with Safe Haven Baby Boxes, Inc. Rita, would you come forward to the podium? What up?
Yes, sir.
So the municipal order is in your packet. I'm sure each of you have had an opportunity to read it. The lease agreement is included with it, if you wanted to slog through that document as well. But you're ready tonight as a council to approve this agreement. And so I bring it, Karen, I know you've spoken with some council members over the weekend.
Yes. We approve it and I'll ask for the next step, if that's okay.
Sure. Is there a motion for approval of item 11A on our agenda?
Motion.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
And a second. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Thank you. That carries. Judge Covington, this is a joint initiative, so thank you for being here.
My pleasure. I know Rick Hostetler very much a part of advocating for this as well. I think Rick and his wife as well are involved with the Not Alone Pregnancy Center quite a bit. So no, teamwork makes the dream work. So
Thank you.
Got it done.
Karen?
Yes, and while Ms. Rita is up here, something I have talked to the council members about, and it seems like we will be in agreement, but we have to make it formalized, is we would like to add a plaque of dedication and thank you to, this is part of the city, what the city will take care of, and maybe the county will jump in with this too, but something to the effect, I am not the wordsmith, so we'll leave this to other people, but this is the gist of what would go on the plaque. A thank you to the Not Alone Pregnancy Center for the donation of the Safe Haven box, and in memory of Marvin Thompson for his dedication to his family, the preservation of life, and the service to the community of Georgetown. And then the dates he served on the council. We would like to do that more, and then for you all.
Thank you.
So I ask the council to join me with that, and maybe we'll put the city of Georgetown on it, put the county on there as well, and make it all together. But we honor you all and honor Marvin. And thank you for what you've done.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Karen. Was that a
And I
mo-
need to put that in form of
was that a motion?
That's a
It
motion.
was a motion. Thank you. And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Todd. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are any opposed? Rita, thank you for the gift to the city and to children.
It took a village. It took talking to you all, talking to the Scott Fiscal Court. It took a community that supports us so that we could support women and children. So it's a group effort. As George Lesby says, there's no other place better than here. So thank you all. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rita.
Now we'll introduce, let's see, I've got a way to do this, so I do it correctly, because there've been a lot of steps in this. You don't just fall into $5 million. It takes a lot of steps. So, Chase, could I hand the program off to you, and you kind of go from there, because this came through the Georgetown Municipal Water and Sewer Service.
Oh, good evening. It's nice to be here and have this many things to celebrate all at one meeting. We have a number of items for your consideration tonight, but the first one and the very special one tonight, I'd like to again introduce some guests that we have that made this possible. Senator Thayer, Representative Pratt, Judge Covington, and Chairman of the Board of Commissioners here at Georgetown Municipal, Les Jarvis, is joining us. So if you'd allow me, I'll take you back 3 years, 2019. We set out on a course and we put together our first long-term capital program, at least the first that I'm aware of. And it was one where we actually identified projects over a 5-year period that we were going to accomplish. And again, our first long-term needs assessment included 83 projects that we defined as critical. And if the no action alternative was selected for these efforts, that meant we were going to have negative impact to our customers. So highlighting that program, our wastewater treatment plant 1 expansion and upgrade, our South Sewer extension, those are our highlights of that program. But there's many projects that the board and staff, we put a lot of priority on related to drinking water. And some of those projects have been a little slower, and that's not what we wanted. But last December, Judge, I think we started talking, and Judge reached out and said, what do you need help with? And what do you need help with that's going to impact a lot of people at once? And so I said, well, we need storage tanks. And I think it was March, you reached back out and said, you need to call Senator Thayer. He's got some good news for you. And through the budget process at the state level, Senator Thayer, Representative Pratt, their colleagues, they have secured this $5 million allocation for the Paynes Depot Road water storage tank improvements. And this is a project that will be for a new 3.75 million gallon drinking water storage tank and a booster pump station. Tank's going to be located in that Paynes Depot Road corridor. However, if you think about the broad-reaching impacts of this project, think west of Paynes Depot Road, south side of the county, south side of the bypass within the city limits, all the way over to past Bryn Gardner property, Anderson Community, Southland Christian Church area. We feel like we're going to see improvements with this project through that whole span. Over 1,700 existing customers we believe will be positively impacted. I think we're going to have increased fire protection, better fire protection, increased domestic service, and again, that water storage that we need, that we're desperately lacking. So, like to express our gratitude from the utility on behalf of the Board of Commissioners for your all's involvement, helping us securing this funding, move this project up in our schedule. And the Board of Commissioners has, they have approved a proclamation of their support and their gratitude for this. I think that the clerk is going to read that here in a minute, but we're eager to get started. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Senator Thayer.
Thank you, Chase. Mayor, members of the council, guests, first of all, what a wonderful surprise to be here to see you dedicate the baby box in Marvin's memory. Rita and Marvin been fighting for the unborn in this community a long time, and that's a bill that Representative Pratt and I voted for a couple of years ago to allow local governments to set up a baby box. That's really great news and an unexpected surprise. So back to the matter at hand. During the most recent budget cycle, we found ourselves in the unusual position of having a pretty substantial budget surplus. And we made a decision to put about $2 billion into the Rainy Day Trust Fund, which is a really good thing because we're going into special session later this week because it rained. It really was a rainy day in eastern Kentucky, and we're going to go into a special session likely on Wednesday to allocate $200 million of that rainy day fund for our fellow citizens in eastern Kentucky whose lives were devastated by the flooding. But after we finished allocating the money for pensions and corrections and Medicaid and the operations of government and putting the money into the rainy day fund, we had some money left over for water and sewer. So how many of you have seen the musical Hamilton, either on Disney Plus or perhaps on the stage? And there's a great song in there about being in the room where it happened. And fortunately, I was in the room where it happened that late night when we were working on the budget. And I texted Judge Covington, and I said, I hope you're awake, because it was pretty late. And I said, we're putting the final touches on the budget. I'm on the conference committee that does the final budget. And I said, we've got some money for water and sewer. What is the most immediate need? And he said, $5 million, elevated storage tank. Exactly that. Okay. It's always good to have someone to validate what I said as being true. And so with no pushback from any of my colleagues on the conference committee, we were able to do that line item for $5 million for the water tank that Chase described. I'm very fortunate to have a great partner in the House of Representatives and Representative Pratt to make sure that when things went over to the House that the money stayed in, and it made it in the final budget and is available to GMWSS as of July 1 when the new fiscal year began. So hopefully they'll be sending you the money soon. If they don't, let us know, and Representative Pratt and I will make a call.
Yes, sir.
So it's a very exciting day. You know, I've been in the legislature now for 19 and a half years and been through a lot of budget processes, and it's very rare that we've had any leftover money to do this sort of thing. Once we take care of pensions, which take up an increasingly larger portion of our budget every year, Medicaid, which continues to go up, corrections, all the things that we are required to pay for. So this was a real pleasant bonus, and I've got a nice oversized check to memorialize today that Representative Pratt and I would like to present. But before I do that, I would like to turn it over to my House colleague for a few comments, if that's okay.
Please. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor.
We are blessed to have Damon over in the Senate. And again, he's on that conference committee. I have been on it twice. I've been on ANR twice and been to the conference committee. I got off of it twice. It's about as much fun as watching paint dry, let me tell you. It's a long process, but again, ANR is just not something I want to be on. I do my company budget, and I figured
I don't need to do any more budgets. But the fact you have someone like Damon in the Senate that can actually get money like that in there, when we talked about things like this, and I'm like, there's no way in the world it's going to happen. It happened. So, again, thanks to his leadership, he got in it. No one came over to the house and made sure he got in it. But it's a great day, and this is great use of money for long-term that will benefit the people of Scott County long-term, and that's what we look at spending money on. So thank you guys very much and appreciate it. And again, thanks, Damon, for getting it in there.
Our greatest thanks for this contribution. We've got so many capital needs right now. And I'm real proud of the fact that when you were in a position to do this grand gesture, that we had done enough work and we had real clarity on what the needs were.
Yes.
And we had evaluated the needs and prioritized those needs, and I'd had a chance to share those with the judge. So the fact that all of this worked very well together is a real compliment, and thank you all very much. Would the council like to, I saw the fiscal court with a picture, and would we like to take a group picture with the $5 million check?
I'd just like to say again, I'm just really glad that Judge Covington stays up late and was able to receive and respond to my text message.
I do want to add to the record that I confirmed with Chase that, hey, that $5 million, the appropriateness of the elevated storage tank and being a priority, you know, we wanted to make sure that we were still on the same page. And we did that. And I'll go right back to what I said earlier, teamwork. I'm proud of what we have here in our community. We have great leadership at the state level. And then I've been blessed to be able to work with Mayor Prather, Chase, the whole council, GMWSS, Les. You know, when we all work together, rising tide raises all ships. And I'm really proud of being able to help move this ship along. So we appreciate all you all do at the state level, and appreciate you all as well. And Chase, I don't know if anybody in America has more projects than GMWSS and Chase right now. We appreciate what you're doing for our community.
It was a great collaborative effort, Mayor.
That's right.
It was a great collaborative effort. And that's one thing about this community. I've lived here for 22 years now, going on 23. And the collaboration, the community collaboration, is always something that we are known for in Frankfort. And not every community has it. Trust me, I know legislators who have adversarial relationships with their local governments back home. That's never been the case here. We have a great sense of collaboration, and people are a little jealous of it. They're jealous of it along with Toyota. They're jealous of that as well. But they like what we're doing here.
Thank you very much.
Where do you want to do this, Mayor?
Who's going to take a photograph, and somebody tell us where we should be.
Don't wait in front of the windows.
Right.
Do it here before
That
you
way.
shoot back.
Yeah.
Watch out for court.
Maybe over here?
Well, maybe over there.
Over there?
Why don't we
Let's do
get
that.
our-
Let's do that.
I didn't mean to snap at you. That's what Carol would do. Carol would snap at me, not you.
Oh, that
Don't get too close to the light. Andrew, would you do me a favor?
They need more. And we're coming. How many phones do we have? Is that it? Anybody else?
All right, y'all ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2,
Yeah, we got a couple more of these.
Yeah, I know what she was here for.
Yeah, it's the state. When we get through that, it's the same. appreciate our. Good, good.
Just one item.
Good day, good day.
That's a pretty good way to start a meeting. Let's see. Item 5 on our agenda. Did we have public comments? I do not have the sheet.
We have one public comment, I believe. Yes. Emily from the list.
I saw the application in the packet, so I figured that, yes, please come forward.
Yes. I'm Emily Metcalf with Elizabeth Village. I'm here because Elizabeth Village submitted an event application form requesting that the city parking lot be blocked off on October 28th, which is a Friday, from 3 to 9 p.m. We'd like to host a night market. So October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and we're currently working on a project where a local artist is going to support groups for domestic violence survivors, creating art, and we're going to showcase that night, but then also want to invite local artists and makers to set up booths to sell their art, and the vendor fees for those booths will be donated to our campaign for a domestic violence shelter. We're estimating to have about 50 vendors at the event, and they'll all be providing their own tents and booths. And then we will be using some electricity that night, so we'll have some food trucks and then live music as well.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah. Motion, Mayor.
Thank you. One's in order. And a second. Any questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Perfect. Thank
All
you.
right, have fun. Were there any other public comments? Thank you. Under mayor's comments, just a couple. Before we meet the next time, we will have our Festival of the Horse, pretty chock-filled weekend of activity. I think the clerk's got a flyer for you. You're good. You've got it. You got it at your seat. Everything from the chili cook-off on Thursday night through the whole weekend of activities. The other thing that I wanted to spend just a minute or two talking with the council about is an update on Republic Services and our waste management activities within the city of Georgetown. Obviously, the transition continues, but we're now 6 months in, and we had committed at the beginning of this to sit down and do a 6-month review to see how this implementation had gone. We've been in constant communication with the company, and we've had lots of meetings, but we did want to take the occasion of a formal 6-month review to recap all of our progress. What progress has been made. And just a handful of information for you. I'm going to give you some information tonight, just from my impressions of the meeting and information I got from that meeting. Devin and Andrew can add any comments that they may want if they need to at all. Within the next 2 to 3 meetings, we will have representatives from Republic Services here to make the presentation themselves and to take questions from the council. We expect that'll probably happen in September, but certainly within the next 2 to 3 meetings. But until that time, the company and we have been reviewing a lot of data to see how things have moved over the 6-month period of time. We all know that there were some well-documented hiccups in the early stages that really got us off to a tough start. Everything from bad information entered into the system for a handful of days to those are well documented. There seems to be, statistically at least, continuous improvement, particularly within the recent couple of months. The latest report that they reviewed with us for their entire service area They had picked up just over 330,000 cans, and I believe there were 240 documented complaints, which is 240 too many. But the data seems to be tracking in a correct direction. However, I want to assure you of this. Telling someone that is having a garbage service issue that we are making substantial improvement is the wrong thing to tell them. Because let me tell you what substantial improvement means to them. It means the garbage in front of their house is gone. They don't want to know about substantial improvement system-wide. They want to know that their problems are gone. I made that mistake this last week, and I stand corrected. No progress is complete until it's all complete. We have several areas that are persistent problems. We have some neighborhoods, believe it or not, that are working really well, where there are very few complaints. We particularly are still struggling with downtown. Even our Public Works Department struggled with downtown. We really had to work at downtown. The alleys are narrow. We had to use short wheelbase trucks. It's just a hard thing to do. But we have not given up on downtown. In fact, this week, Robert Bruin and some of our staff and Republic folks are going to walk the downtown route, literally get out and walk the downtown routes. Look with Robert where the turns are hard, where the downtown collection's hard, because we're really, our downtown has to be clean. It must be clean, and we're not going to accept anything less than that. So there will be an additional emphasis downtown and on the alleys and on some of these persistent areas. They will be here to talk to you in a couple of weeks. We still are referring problems. We referred today. The young lady that moved the misbehaving shop. She's had the wonderful experience of having garbage problems at both of our locations. So we know where some of the areas of improvement are. Continue to listen to your constituents. Please continue to give us that information. We have asked the question, and we have been assured, and I've asked to see data to assure me of this, that our experience over the first 6 months is very similar to what most communities' onboarding experience is. And that they get it right, and that they make it work. That is cold comfort to anybody who has trash in front of their house, who has a mess in front of their house. But we'll continue to work on it. And they'll be here personally for you in a couple of meetings.
Mayor, have you had noticed or had any complaints about garbage and finding it in areas that it's not supposed to be in, like dumping on the side of the roads or dumping here and there in neighborhoods and things like that? Have you had any reports of that?
I haven't yet. Judge, have you picked up on many?
We're just a couple incidences that JR reported that's in a normal spot. And, that's the best I can, out in the county.
We had one last week, but it wasn't a solid waste collection issue. It was an improper dumping issue, and Public Works took care of it. Yeah.
My observation has been we had that problem before, but we just took care of it.
Okay.
One thing I have seen is that some of the private dumpsters that businesses have been utilized by the public that have been frustrated, that haven't been able to get rid of the garbage. They've come to those businesses to get rid of their garbage. I've seen that, for a while and firsthand.
Yeah. We've also found a number of locations that just seem to overwhelm even a large number of cans. They've got to find a way to get a small dumpster in there, or a restaurant, for example, in some locations. It's just going to have so much refuse that it makes it hard to operate. So the transition continues. We have completed a 6-month review, and you will have your own 6-month review soon.
Mayor, do you mind if I have anything?
Please.
This goes back to Mayor's point about if you're receiving complaints, please forward them, specifically the addresses. The one thing that I think is really positive is that Republic has the economies of scale to have software much more advanced than we would ever have. So when we get an address and the person's saying, well, everything was in my can and it wasn't picked up, they've got a photograph of every single stop, which is helpful, because then we can see, okay, well, maybe they just didn't call in that additional item. We can actually solve the problems if it's address-based because of that data. So the data that he's referring to is literally picture, date stamped, time stamped. So I think that's really helpful, especially because a lot of people struggle with the transition of what time to sit their things out. And so that's the kind of data that is going to be helpful solving those, case-by-case issues that do matter.
Also, some education. I have seen rampant on local Facebook pages a complaint that if your Herbie lid is popped up or at all over full and the lid is at an angle, that they won't pick up the can. Republic says that is not true. They pick up all those cans. What they try and deter people from doing is they've got a picture of one where folks kept it all in the can, but it's literally looks like a hot air balloon with a tarp over top of it. That is something they're not going to accept. But a popped up lid, they do accept that. That's not a reason. If you read that, and I've read it a bunch, there are just some educational things that I think we can clarify.
You should take the opportunity to plug the pre-dump day program. Keep plugging that until just keep plugging it. Free, for free, if you live in Scott County, 4 free dumps a year at the Rumpke Transfer Station.
Yeah, the courtesy of city and county government.
That's gonna happen, I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, that's gonna start July the 1st, right?
Oh, yeah, it's
right now.
It's going.
Okay,
Yeah.
I need to tell people.
And Andrew, are we still doing the one large item per week? Wasn't that because I've had some people say that they've set one large item out and they won't pick it up, but, and I forward those complaints on, and so.
It is also critical that they call ahead.
Okay. I'll make sure Andrew relay that, but yes.
I do know they won't pick up mattresses and things like that, so I have run across that when I've been out driving around, but I went on and called Robert.
They
and just
pick up
let him know.
mattresses, but they have to be wrapped in plastic.
Well, these are like out in front of apartments, I wouldn't be able to tell who they were.
Back when we ran Public Works, we picked that stuff up with a one-arm grabber truck, and we didn't mind grabbing a mattress with the mechanical arm, and we would. Prior to getting the one-arm grabber, even we required plastic. We just can't pick them up without being wrapped in plastic. But Republic will pick them up if they're wrapped in plastic.
Mayor, I think your comment that education is important, because I do think we were spoiled with our other, city-run pickup. And there are so many peculiarities that, citizens need to go to the website, and there are very strict rules about this and that and this and that are very different. Before, it just got done. Probably better than anywhere in Kentucky. And we can't expect that at this point. And if we just go on the website, try to follow the new rules that Republic has set into place, I think that's a huge part of this transition is, okay, we have 4 dump days. We have different things about what can and cannot be recycled, no pun intended. So I do think that the public is going to have to help us with the education process. We are putting things out there, and maybe we need to do something to get the word out again. Once Republic comes, maybe we can send out new flyers, or Republic can, to reintroduce some of these things.
And we've talked about just that education effort. Something that surprised me, that I think will surprise the council, because we lament so many of the services we lost.
Mhm.
Republic is currently doing backdoor pickup for 93 customers in Georgetown. Every week. I bet that surprised you. It surprised me. That's the service that we used to be proud of. We're still doing that. Republic's doing backdoor service for 93 customers. It can be worked out. So I think we have an obligation to stay after and make sure our expectations, community expectations, are met. And then I think we may have to educate ourselves a little bit.
Yep.
So, thank you. That was all the mayor's comments I had. Any questions? Item 7 on our agenda, Lanes Run Business Park, a resolution approving the sale of property on Corporate Boulevard. Jack?
Yes, sir. Good evening. Tonight, Jack Connor representing Scott County United, your economic development group. With me is Mr. Lucas Witt. Lucas here is with MWM Consulting, so we have partnered together with them to present a project to you tonight. I always like the proverbial caveat that we've done before, and you'll get a nick, but you won't get to know who it is. However, I've got to do the math. Apologize.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Dang it, ain't no jack without a map. Yes, sir.
I like your map.
Thank you, ma'am. So the project that Lucas and I have been working on is in Lanes Run Business Park. And before I show that to you, just a couple of quick comments. We have presented to the mayor and a contract for 13.2 acres at Lanes Run Business Park. We have likewise transmitted a check for $15,000, which acts as earnest money for the 13.2 acres. Generally, that earnest money is only $500 an acre, but in this particular case, the client has issued one for $15,000. The project itself is also a KBI, Kentucky Business Investment Act project, as we have discussed many, many times. That application was already transmitted to the Kentucky Economic Development Finance Authority. Actually, it will be held, the meeting will be held this Thursday, and obviously under the assumption that you approve the contract that we're going to present to you tonight. So, for that reason, then I'm going to give you that NICS code. The NICS code, or North American Standard Industrial Classification Code, is number 312140. So we could call it that NICS code, or we could also actually call it Project Butterfly, which is the name that I was first approached with from Lucas on behalf of the client. The map that you have in front of you, if you look at the far right on Corporate Boulevard, it's lots 41 and 43, 42 and 43. Bear in mind again, a caveat that there are no lots. Actually, we sell property and then we plat it and then we record it as such. So that's approximately 13.2 acres. It's sold at $35,000 an acre. There are a couple of conditions. One in particular is of note, and that is there is a first right of refusal on behalf of the client for the additional property. So that would be approximately 17 acres that would be due south of those two parcels that equal the 13.2. In this case, the first right of refusal is good for 2 years. The client would then, if we had a legitimate client who met our requirements, had a project that met the BP1 guidelines, we would then tell the client, yes, we have somebody who's interested. you now have 14 days to either reject or accept the first right of refusal. However, the contract that Devin has put together along with the client's attorneys is that we also want to know the client who was wanting the property, not this client, but a new client. Make sure that they have a project that's real, and then we would go to our client, this one, and say, if you're gonna take the first right of refusal, exercise it, then we want to have clarification on exactly what it is you're gonna do with the property, the additional property, what its use gonna be, et cetera. So we tried to protect the city and the county, since you are partners in Phase 2 construction, so that we don't have someone speculating on our property. It's pretty cheap at $35,000 an acre. It's appropriate, I think, Lucas, we've done this before. We did this in a meeting at Business Park Authority, by the way, I apologize. Business Park Authority approved this last Wednesday, the 17th. And at that part of that presentation in open meetings, we did indicate that this project is for a little bit over, it's about $51 million. The employment would begin, as far as KBI is concerned, at 20, and would reach in excess of 45 employees. I'll be more than happy. I think that's kind of where I need to leave it at this point in time. Devin has the contract, and I think we're going to do a resolution, but Lucas or I, be more than happy to answer any questions. I am going to make one more statement. I am, because I really want to use this map. So what I did today was we had a kind of a new map presented just for you all. So if you look at, as an example, upper right says lot number 12. We do have a contract pending on that. That contract is not to us. They're waiting for the senior vice president. That's 4.1 acres. Go a little bit farther to the left. That's another 4.1 acre project. That's 4.1 acres, and this is a manufacturer that actually is, it's a good project. Let's leave it at that. You'll go down a little bit farther south. You'll see 32A. We have another project there for 3 acres, which is also, in this particular case, it's a local manufacturer who wants to get out of a lease situation into an ownership position. And then below that, you'll see UPI, which is our Universal Piping Industries project that also got a KBI. And I hope that you've noticed that they are already under construction. Our sanitary sewer work that you approved is complete, thanks to Chase and GMWSS and leak eliminators. So we're ready, close. Hopefully we can close that property in 2 weeks, maybe in 2 weeks. So that'll generate about $500,000 for you in land sales. So now I can say any questions, please.
Jack, I have a question, if you can answer it. On this, once the sale goes through and is final, how soon will they be starting to build and production?
So I'll let Lucas kind of address that. I can talk from a preliminary development plan stage, and because I'll let you.
Yeah, well, first, thanks everybody and the council and the members here for taking this up tonight. This particular client of ours, I think, is one that will fit in very well here, and they had a strong desire to be in Georgetown. And I think as a client that's very forward-thinking, I think will ultimately make the community proud. To answer your question, they have to go through the traditional due diligence process of geotech and phase 1 preliminary development plan. So we built in a due diligence period for them that they have the ability to extend, right? Their hope is they can get through that hopefully within 180 days with no problems and get started. We all understand that if things happen, then we have to work through them. But the hope is with that due diligence period built in, that gives them the time to get through their engineering items to get it ready for construction.
So they're planning on, as soon as they hit the ground running, they're running?
That's the hope, yeah, that's the hope.
It should be a right-of-way thing.
We're hopeful. We've already done a phase 1. It was old 2002, so they may want to relook at that probably. It's ag land, so it's not going to change much.
And you mentioned that it was 20 to 45 employees, and did you have any idea about the pay for the employees?
Yes, yeah, so it's around $26 to $28 an hour on average. And keep in mind that obviously includes your hourly employees, but also your salaried employees. So those numbers are what we're taking to the state later this week for hopeful approval for the tax incentives that the Cabinet for Economic Development will be applying to the project.
It's way beyond the minimum that's required by KBI.
I have a question for Chase. Do we have the wastewater capacity for the, could you speak to that?
Good right here. Should go up.
Answer your question, yes. A few months back, if you recall, I presented a revised renegotiated user agreement for the wastewater treatment plant number 2 plant between us and Toyota Motor Manufacturing. I think all of the parties, being the city, our Board of Commissioners, the Business Park Authority, and Toyota, recognize the importance of the park. So within that renegotiated agreement, now it's not just an allocation for Georgetown Municipal and Toyota. Now there's an allocation for Georgetown Municipal, Toyota, and Lanes Run Business Park. So Jack has a specific allocation. 100,000 gallons a day is what's remaining.
Yes, sir.
And so that is dedicated to the business park, and this will be, I believe, the first project that comes out of that.
Yes, sir. We've already ran the numbers for all of the utilities in terms of sanitary sewer. We're good.
You're
We're
good.
very, very good.
Okay, thank you.
Great capacity left over.
Key question, Willow, so, but that has been addressed in this case. Any other questions for Jack? I know he's limited on what he can tell us, but there a motion for approval of the resolution?
I'd be glad to make a motion.
I'll be glad to second it.
Thank you. And motion's been seconded. If there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Good luck on the 25th.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Let's see, Chase. If we come back to item 8 on the agenda, Judge, thank you. If we come back to GMWSS on the agenda, we've done item A. If you want to pick up with item B.
Yes, we have, I believe, 7 more items for your consideration tonight, and if you'll allow, I'll run through all of those and then take your questions. These are becoming, as we've discussed, kind of standard business on a month, but when I say that it's standard and I run through these, please please know that I recognize the magnitude of what I'm asking you to consider tonight. But these are required, these are necessary expenditures, so that I'll jump into the overview. Item B is a pay request. It's pay request number 16 for Judy Construction, and this is for work completed in the month of July on our Treatment Plant 1 upgrade and expansion. The purchase order is for $2,233,302.03. Over $1 million of this is for stored materials. So in order to stave off some of these ongoing price escalations, we have asked Judy Construction to secure every bit of construction material and equipment you can as soon as you can. We'll store it, we'll keep it secure, and we lock in the price. So over $1 million of this is just stored materials, and that would factor in with kind of the monthly expenditure that we have for this project. Moving very fast, very pleased with Judy's progress. Next, we have purchase order for Rod Myers in the amount of $10,119. This is a replacement of a check valve at our Clabber Bottom pump station. This is a budgeted purchase, and this is for the valve and the shipping. We'll have to price the installation once we receive it. Next, we have a purchase order for Barnes Blacktop in the amount of $10,961. This is for pavement work and pavement repair at Plant 2. This is for all the parking lot service roads. So again, is a budgeted purchase, and as you can see, we reached out and asked for quotes. This wasn't the level to do bids, but we only got the one quote, unfortunately, and that is kind of representative of the times on both contractors and professional services. Our consultants, they're very busy, and we're just happy to have the one purchase, or the one quote from Barnes Blacktop, and it did come in under budget, so we're going to recommend this for award. Next is a purchase order to Stewart Architecture in the amount of $31,500. This is for roof replacement on 3 buildings at Plant 2. And while this is professional services, I'll just point out again, our board requires us to get competitive pricing from multiple firms. We don't just negotiate with one. And while we reached out to multiple firms, we only did get the one quote, unfortunately. Again, consultants are very busy. This is a budgeted project, and we're well under budget with the design budget being for $50,000. And this is extensive in that these are the original flat roofs on these 3 buildings, and we're going to add pitched roofs. So there is a need for design here. Next, we have a purchase order for Evoqua in the amount of $49,390. This is for our semi-annual carbon replacement at Plant 2 budgeted purchase, and this is a sole source purchase, proprietary chemical. Our last two purchase orders are related to engineering contracts that have already been approved by both the board and the council, and we're just bringing you the subsequent POs to go with those contracts. First one is for Kentucky Engineering Group, the amount of $163,390. This is for design services on our Northwest Bypass waterline extension. Later on in your agenda, you have an assistance agreement for your consideration tonight, and that is to accept the grant funding that's going to fund this project. This is our ARPA dollars, the $2,093,000 that was a direct allocation to Georgetown Municipal. And then the last is a purchase order to Hazen, the amount of $292,373. This was what I brought you the contract for last meeting for our sanitary sewer hydraulic model. So I'll pause there and ask for your or take your questions.
Thanks, Chase. Were you surprised at the spread on the Kentucky Engineering Group bid?
No,
They left a
I'm
bunch
just
of
not
money on
surprised
that.
anymore.
You don't get surprised.
But
Some of those were double and triple.
I'm surprised, but they keep giving us really good service. I don't really see how they're making a huge profit, but as long as they're able to do the work, we've had no complaints. They've knocked multiple projects. They've just knocked them out of the park. If that's their number, that's their number.
Good vendor. Is there a motion for approval?
Mayor, for all, Mayor.
Thanks, Todd.
Mayor?
Yes.
Can I ask Chase a
Oh,
question?
please.
Chase, at what point are you in the construction phase with Judy Construction? Have you made up any ground?
We've made up ground, and again, we were supposed to have already had this. We have a general idea of what I've been saying. I think that the revised schedule will be mid-2025, and Judy Construction has submitted a revised schedule, which we need to turn into a no-cost change order. We've already approved the cost change order, but we do need to do a change order for contract extension on work days, and we're working on that, but we anticipate that taking us through mid-2025. However, Judy Construction is mobilized. They have a great workforce out there, and they are moving. So,
thank you.
Thanks for the question. Have you given up completely on the end of 24?
we will push.
Okay.
We will push.
I'll leave it at that. Thank you. Motion's been made. Is there a second? Did we get a second? Tim. Okay, thank you. If there are no questions, we'll take all these together. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Thank you, Chase. Anything else?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, we've had a lot of highlights tonight, but we still have good stuff yet to come. Item 9 on our agenda, Lord Act Sergeant presentation on the City Hall renovation. I'm very pleased. I want the council to know I'm just couldn't be more pleased with the partnership you've chosen between Lord Act Sergeant and Codell Construction Management. I think we had a great design from the architects. I think there's been a lot of work moved forward. I think that Elizabeth may be able to speak with more confidence tonight about where we are, and I think the council will be pleased with the report. So, Elizabeth?
I hope so. I have the laser pointer. I don't know if I'm going to use it, just so that I don't blind anybody this time.
I appreciate you saying something. Mayor and I've been hit a few times.
I know, and I'm very sorry. I did test it earlier, and I was getting the reflection off the floor, but it kind of bounces a couple different ways.
I
So
think if we tilted the TV a different direction and shot the signal up instead of down. It's an engineering question, I guess.
I'm just going to try to speak to it this time and not have to point to anything, just so that I don't blind anybody. But if anybody has any questions as to what I am trying to point to, let me know, and I will do my best. So again, I'm Elizabeth Hunt, for anybody who I have not had the pleasure of meeting yet. I think I've met all of you. I have a couple of our engineers are with me tonight as well. I'm going to put my engineer hat on for just a little bit, do some high-level stuff, and then they are here to answer any specific questions that you may have. They are the professionals for a reason, so questions. What we have tonight to show you a couple of different things. One, an update on some of the things that you saw before. We've been moving through design, we've been developing things, refining some of the details. So we have an update on some of the things that you've seen, and we have a few new things to show. And then we can talk about the budget and estimate a little bit, which I'm sure everybody is dying to see where we've landed. So some of the stuff I may move fairly quickly on. If you have any questions, feel free to stop. As far as site improvements, again, we talked about this last time, but just to give an update, what we have for the front of the building, which is included in the base bid design, is really improving that front entry sequence. To the left of the entry, we're showing a planter bed, trying to bring some green to the front of the building, but we've also bordered that with a curb around it to hold any of the green and water off of the building so that it doesn't leach into the building or down into the basement. So trying to plan for the future on that as well. We have the larger stair kind of going up to a platform to get into the building, and then still showing our entry ramp there to the right. We've extended it a little bit to show a planter bed around that with some seat walls, just really trying to highlight the entry into the building. We also, I am going to try to do this without the pointer, but if you can see, there's a circle right in the middle of the hatch pattern there by the entry. Thank you very much for your assistance.
Thank you, Vanna.
That right now is where we are proposing to locate the flagpole. I know that was something that was requested at our last meeting, is where can we put a flagpole. So that is where we have it right now. That is planned for a 35-foot tall pole, which is really in proportion to the building where it needs to be, with a 8 by 10 or 10 by 12 flag, I believe, which is, again, according to the correct proportions that we have been seeing. One thing to consider with the flag size is how close it is to the building, and the same with the flagpole. So that's the plan for now. We are also planning on uplighting that a little bit. Those lights would be down in the ground, so not a trip hazard, not something that anybody would have trouble navigating around. And then we also have some lights. You can see the little black dots that kind of border the walls around the ramp. Those are lights in the seat walls, and then we're also planning on putting lights, sort of an integral light with the handrail that goes up the ramp, so that, again, we don't have anything in the wall, but that it shines down over the whole surface. Moving around to the back of the building, this is something that is still in an add alternate. If we have money left in the budget, then we hope to be able to add this into the scope of work. It can also be something that could be done easily as a phase 2 to the project. But trying to redo that sort of rear patio area, add some green space with, just a little bit of green in the curbs, redo the parking a little bit, give a designated trash area, and just sort of make that a nicer patio. So that is still allocated for an add alternate or a phase 2 at this point.
Elizabeth, before you move on,
Yes.
you talk about the pavers in the front. So that was a little bit of a late addition, right? Is that still in the plan?
It is. So the brick pavers, what we have right now is for the sidewalk all around the front of the building, and wraps around this side until you get to the edge of the tower where the stone stops on the tower. Is also where the brick pavers would stop. So we have that sort of brick at that entry, and then it transitions to concrete as you move down the alley on the sidewalk side. We are still planning on widening that sidewalk along that side of the building and adjusting the alley drive aisle as well. Did I
And
cover
you
it?
might just mention that sort of little island where we're trying to slow down traffic a little bit.
Okay. So as you come, as you turn to come towards the building, we are, like Andrew said, trying to direct traffic a little bit since we are widening the sidewalk and sort of shifting the alley. We're adding an island there with a tree.
Right here?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Again, to try to direct traffic around to the alley and also just give a nice border there for where traffic will flow. Did I skip anything? Anything else? We're good? All right. Moving on to the building update. Really, with the floor plans, there's not much change from what you all were able to see last time. We've just been refining these details. We are currently looking at a couple of different options for the bench in the council chambers. What we want to make sure we do is provide a bench that is accessible, that we have a back way out of the bench, but that is accessible from both sides. So we're looking at a couple different configurations for that. We'll be able to provide an update for that in the coming weeks, but that is something that is on our radar. Again, with the second and third floors, no major updates to the plan. Still have the offices and meeting rooms on the second floor, and then the offices in the mayor's office up on the third floor. We talked a little bit last time about the ceilings and kind of the look and feel that we're going for in each of these spaces. So again, in the main public areas, trying to keep it very traditional and a nod to the historic aesthetic that would have been there originally. In the office areas, we're modernizing that a little bit, looking at some opportunities for some different light fixtures that we can use there, more of a contemporary office feel. And then again on the third floor, wanting to keep that very loft-like, have it open, be able to see the structure. As we move forward with design, our hope had been that we could insulate the roof from the top side. So we would have our roof sheathing that was on there now and put the insulation on top of that and the new roof on top of that. As we dug into those details, we found that it was making our roof a little bit too tall. We were getting too close to some of the roof edges, some of the windows, where we need to have plenty of room for flashing and other things to make sure the water doesn't get in the building. And we were getting to be about 2 inches where we should have 8 to 10 inches. As a result, we decided to look at sort of a hybrid approach to what to do for the third floor. So in the center of the third floor, where we have the quote-unquote flat part of the roof, that can be easily insulated from the top side because at that point, you're just meeting 2 roof edges. You're not meeting windows or parapet walls where we're tight on clearance. So in the center of the space where we have the open office, it would be exposed to the structure. On the sides where it slopes down is where we would insulate from the underside and cover that with drywall. So what you see there on the far left, where you see the white that sort of slopes up, that is where we would have to cover the roof structure with insulation. And again, in the center, you would see the exposed joists and decking from the roof.
So that'd be the original exposed roof?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. And then here is just a view from the other side. So this is looking out towards where you would go out to the stair towards the back.
So rather than all exposed, you get a good enough sampling of exposed in the center.
Correct. And the majority of the sloped part, because where it starts to get too low to inhabit that space anyway, is behind the offices. So it's really only a portion of that that you will see that gets covered. It's definitely important to insulate the space up there. So we were trying to find a way to creatively do both, which is how this hybrid option sort of came about.
What kind of insulation do we use in that roof, and what are value, do you know?
What our plan is right now is to just put bat insulation in between the joists and then cover that with drywall. Looking at about an R20 up there, technically by energy code, with this being an historic building, we don't have to get all the way up to an R38, which is what new construction requires. We typically try to do around R20. That said, we could go higher if we want to.
Look at like a closed cell spray insulation.
We have, and we've done that before on some of our projects, so that certainly could be an option.
Maybe a combination even?
You could. It is definitely, there's a cost factor for that between the bats and the spray foam insulation. I have used it recently on a project and was rather surprised at where those costs were coming in recently. But that's not to say that we can't look at that as an option.
How high is that ceiling up there, roughly?
I mean, I think when you get to the
Pretty
center
high though,
point,
right?
yeah. I mean, it's like,
14, 15?
yeah, it's between 14 and 16 feet as it slopes.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that seems like a critical place to have good insulation. And
Right.
then air circulation, is that kind of being addressed as well?
Yes.
Even when the system may not be?
Yes. And Carrie, I don't know if you want to add
Yeah,
anything.
that has its own, business has its own zones up there, and then we'll get it down at the space, not necessarily conditioning above 11 feet, right?
Would it be a fan type situation?
Mhm.
No? Would
No.
this be not conducive for that?
No, not in this case.
Elizabeth,
Yes.
before you move on, can you talk a little bit about the limited lighting up there and the glass walls?
Yes. So because we're up on the third floor and cannot get all the way to the edge of the exterior wall to maybe put some new windows in, just because of the head height clearance, we've had to pull some of the offices inside of that. What we want to do to make sure we still have plenty of light is put glass fronts on all the offices. We've also planned for 2 skylights up on the top part, so you have light coming in and then light getting to all the offices through the glass wall fronts. So that is sort of our trade-off with not being able to put windows in one of the conference rooms and a couple of the offices up there.
So like the hanging lights that you have there, will they be able to hit the ceiling? Will they accentuate the ceiling?
We can do where light, a direct indirect fixture where light shines both up and then back and then down. So we can definitely look at that as an option there.
I just think with the uniqueness of that ceiling, and if that's a feature we wanted to highlight, that'd be a great way to do it.
Sure. And we're still having the office walls stop at roughly 10 feet. They all have ceilings in them still, but that way you can see above sort of that whole volume of the space. Any other questions? Just to remind everybody what we talked about last time with our proposed alternates. So again, what we wanted to do to make sure that we could manage the cost is look at what a good base bid project would be and look for a series of alternates that we could add into the project if our pricing came back the way we wanted it to. So the first alternate that we identified would be the rear stair. The base bid, again, is for that stair to go back to being an open stair. And then the alternate would be to enclose that stair again. I know there have been quite the water issues back there. So essentially, we would have to take all of the walls off and redo all of the walls and re-waterproof everything and make sure that it's good and watertight. So that is an ad alternate. I'm sure you may be curious as to what that might look like. Rather than try to mimic the existing building and what's there, we thought that it should be different, that we should pull pieces and parts over so that it aligns with it aesthetically, but that you can tell it's something different of its time and not trying to fit within an existing building that has been there for many, many years. So this is what we have come up with. So the back stair tower, if the alternate is accepted, would be metal panels. We have selected a very standard panel size, but it's configured to sort of play off of the stacked stone that's on the building. We want to keep with the similar color palette, so we've gone with sort of a medium gray, medium bronze color. And then we've put some glass in that stair tower to let light in the stair, but keep it simple. You can see people moving through it. It is based on a storefront system, so it doesn't need its own structure. It doesn't stand apart. It's built within the wall cavity. And it's very panelized, where we can, because of the size of the metal panels, we can easily adjust the size of those openings if we need to. If we need to make them smaller, it's easy to do that and still have that sort of same rhythm that you see on the screen right now.
It's nice, it's really nice.
Thank you.
That is a
What
beautiful
about
addition.
lighting? Can you do the up-down lighting on those two flanking sides of the doors?
Yes, yes.
Oh, that may be planned out.
Yeah, so right now, we have talked initially, which you'll see in just a little bit, of how we want to add some exterior lighting to the front of the building. We're still talking about how we want to handle it on the rear of the building. Any other questions?
So the net lines, I can see the rear of the building, become useful, that people will actually come into the building, they'll use that parking lot and actually come in that direction.
Mhm.
That's nice.
It gives a secondary entrance to the building. It stands apart a little bit, but not that it's so different that it doesn't kind of fit with the building as a whole.
I have a question about security access.
Yes. As in, what are our plans for it?
Yeah.
So right now, we have on that door, I believe, has a key card entrance. And I believe all of the doors going up are all key card entrance. So that really would be more for employees, whoever has a key card entrance, or, somebody knows someone's coming in, they can come in that way. The public entrance is still through the front door. The main public floor is still the first floor, with the other floors having controlled access either through the stairwell doors or through the elevator.
No camera?
Cameras, I'm not sure if we have finalized locations for those yet. Is that correct? Thank you. Any other questions? Again, the second alternate is the mezzanine level in the tower. So right now we are still planning on the mayor's office being in that tower space. There is the sort of secondary level above that we would like to turn into a mezzanine, but we have put that in as an ad alternate to make sure that we can maximize the budget for the main part of the building.
Elizabeth, if that ad alternate does not get added in.
Yes.
What happens to the ceiling that's there now?
The ceiling that's there now, so it is, we need to do a little bit further investigation because it's a little funny, but it is actually a metal ceiling that is made to look like beadboard wood. Because when you go in it right now, you think it's wood, but if you look really closely, it's you can see where part of it has rusted and peeled apart, and it's actually metal. So we would plan to replace that and go back with something similar to what's there and put that ceiling back in.
The space above the tower is really more.
Oh, the space above the tower?
What happened to the space above the tower?
That I think we actually still need to finalize what the details would be if the alternate is not accepted. If the alternate is accepted, because right now, I don't know, have any of you all been up to that space? Yeah. Up the scary stair? Yeah.
I had to have the fire department help me get down.
It's not a pleasant stair, so I feel you on that one. It is open, the joists are open right now, so you can see the underside of the roof structure there. So if the alternate is accepted, we're planning on drywalling all of that and finishing that out. We would add insulation to the underside of that and put drywall on. If the alternate is not accepted, we need to decide what the best thing to do with that roof is. We may still insulate it so that we do what we need to for that. We just may not finish it out in this phase.
So you're not talking about, you're talking about leaving the separation between
Correct.
the mayor's office would be and that, and either finishing also as secure or doing, how would you get up there at that point?
Well, that would be the question. So part of the other thing that we are doing for the third floor, because right now you have the beams that all of the columns are supported on that run on the floor. And so what we are proposing to do is to build up the floor that 4 inches, give or take, so that the floor level is even with the top of those beams. That way there's not a trip hazard as you're walking around that floor. Because of that, that means that we have to raise the floor everywhere, including in that office right now. That is the only room left that has the original hardwood floors and the original wood door and the original trim, base trim and everything. So we would have to remove that trim and raise it up as well, that 4 to 6 inches, whatever it ends up being, which would also affect the stair that's there, because the stair would then have to raise. Once you start modifying that stair, then there's some question of how much do you have to modify it to meet code, because that's scary stair does not meet code right now at all.
What would happen if you were actually I'm trying to go back from my memory what it looked like. If you took the floor out, so the mayor's office went all the way up so that you could see the beauty of those windows, because it's the windows.
Right.
That's what the ad alternate does.
Okay. So
The ad alternate takes a portion of the front out. So on the drawing to the right where it's red, that would be floor, and where it's white, that would be open, full height. So you would see.
Is this the stair?
The stair is it's the spiral stair there in the back,
So
correct?
you would leave the stair and fix the stair, but leave the stair and have that and then have it open. Those windows are beautiful. I mean, that's the beauty of that, is those windows.
Right. So one thing, which we'll talk about a little bit, we have a highlight to talk about the historic tax credits. The vault, this space, and the roof are all things that we need to talk with Kentucky Heritage Council about, with what our plans are, how that would affect or not with getting the tax credit. So that all sort of is tied together, which is why we don't have a 100% definite plan with this yet.
The message that I'm trying to help convey is that without that ad alternate, things can get a little difficult with that upper space, and whether you can preserve it or whether it just gets permanently walled off.
Right.
And I think we'd all hate to see that.
Right.
Have you taken pictures of the area that the council could see? I mean, not, but that the council could see the uniqueness of that?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we have.
Because I missed your last time that you were here, so I don't know if you've shared that with them, but share that with them to just show them how unique that space is up there.
Yes, we have a number of photos from the space. We have a few photos I did go up the stair and try to take a few photos up there, you know, maybe hanging on for dear life, so I didn't fall.
Skilly still.
Yeah.
About all the dead birds too in your pictures. So.
Yeah, they were there.
Oh, no, they're still in there. They're still in there. But no, we can certainly send some pictures over for everybody to see.
They would, I mean, it's just really taking actually our president.
It really is, and the windows are really nice up there, so it really is a nice space that we would love to highlight. We just want to make sure that we're doing the right thing in the right case, and we're still trying to figure out what that is.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Alternate number 3 is the roof material. This also goes back to the historic tax credit. So we believe what would have been there originally was slate tile. So we would love to go back with that. What we thought we would do is put a standing seam aluminum roof in as the base bid, just from a pricing standpoint, and see where we landed. This may, again, be something with the Heritage Council and the tax credits where they may want to see the slate go on to be able to maximize the amount of credits. So we're trying to figure out where pricing is going to come in on those and see what we can do. But right now, we still have the standing seam aluminum, so the image on the left is what the roof would look like with the metal, and the image on the right is what it would look like with the slate tile. If we did slate, we would also have copper flashings, copper gutter, downspouts, and those sort of copper highlights that the building would have had originally. Regardless of what material we go with, we are planning on doing the skylights up on that sort of flat portion of the roof so that we can bring light down into that third floor space. So as far as what the building exterior is going to look like, hopefully once we are done here, again, going back with either a slate gray or, you know, gray bronze color on the roof is the plan. We plan on repairing or replacing all of the metal cornice on the tower. That is still yet, I get to go up in a lift and look at it all. So we need to do that to figure out how we're actually going to make all that work. We are still planning on putting the attic vent back on the tower roof that was there originally. We are still planning on bringing back the transom window over what would have been the fire station doors originally. We are bringing back the original window configuration. They will be metal windows instead of wood windows. But this is what we hope the building will look like at the end of the day once we are finished with the repairs. We also are planning for the wall of the ramp going into the building of using a smooth limestone panel there. Again, we aren't trying to mimic what is here and what was built here in 1899, but we are trying to play off of that. And so still wanting to use a limestone material, but in a smooth panel instead, just to show that it is something different from the original building.
Do the metal windows give you any problem with the historic credits?
They should not. We have done that before where we have been able to go back with metal because it's something that could be modified or could be, there's an exact phrase for it, which is escaping me right now, but it's because you could go back to wood at some point if you needed to, so they'll allow it.
And the transom, or the arched
Mm-hmm.
window over where the fire trucks were, is that stained glass, or is it planned anything special, or just a piece of?
Right now it is, because what was there originally were divided lights, small squares, divided light, and so that's what we would like to go back with. We could look at doing a translucent glass if we needed to. We could look at a stained glass option if we needed to, but we are really trying to stick with that sort of square divided light look to the building.
efficiency?
Yes, they're all double pane insulated with low E coating on them.
We've got a couple of buildings on Main Street that have the glass transom over the top, and they really stand out.
Mm-hmm.
The square glass transoms.
Thank you.
It's a nice front to the building.
Oh, gosh.
The approach is much more human.
I just have a couple of
Sure.
comments. You know, I think when I know you're still working on the council chambers,
Mhm.
the desk, it's better for us to see each other's expressions, because this is awful. I can't see the expression of the other council members. So if you can do something that's not as much straight panel of this, to have a little curve so we can kind of see each other's expression would be nicer if it can work out. And on the vault,
Mhm.
it's moved out of the council room to give us room.
Mm-hmm.
Would it give you any tax credits if you keep it in the building somewhere?
So that is something that we are trying to talk to them about. Again, we have done that with some of our other projects. We actually did that 3 years ago with one of our city hall projects down in Georgia, where we did something similar. We didn't keep the whole vault, but we kept the door and put that in as a sort of decoration piece, similar to what we're planning for here. And that was reviewed with the State Historic Preservation Office, and they had no issues with it. Now, that project was not going for tax credits, but it all still had to be reviewed by the Historic Preservation Office, and they did not have issues with it. So we are hopeful that we can do the same thing here.
Yeah, it's an architectural feature, it'd be cool.
Right. I'm very excited about that specifically. Anything else on the building exterior?
Good night.
It's amazing you got that tree right there in the middle of all of that. But it does make, it's a good calming device.
You have two in the back, right? where
We
they
do.
all match up, I guess?
We do, and those trees, right now with where they're located, are about 25 to 30 feet from the buildings. We're trying to keep those far enough away so that as they grow, there's no interference with the building.
What about with since it's kind of on that side of the street, what about the businesses that are across there with that tree? Is that a problem? Or is that close to the businesses?
Because of where it's located and in the 3D view, it's a little more deceptive for how close it is. It's actually a little bit further away than what it looks like here. I think part of that depends on really the type of tree that we select there, which again, it's not my area of expertise, but I will rely on our landscape architect to pick the right thing there. He's great at what he does, so I have no concern whatsoever that he'll pick the right thing. There you go. There you go.
The only issue with the trees will attract the pigeon population.
You can set fake owls in them, it works.
But now they should be able to get in upstairs, so you want to have dead birds upstairs, right?
Yep.
Yeah, the fake owls worked for a little bit, and then they sent an officer walking down with bird bomb in a shotgun, so. It wasn't me, but it was an officer.
It looks great.
Thank you. Anything else?
Numbers?
It does.
Yeah.
Are we ready for numbers?
We're getting there.
Okay.
I promise. I'm going to go through this next part fairly quickly, just so that you guys can take a look at what we're planning for the interior of the building as far as finished materials go, look and feel of the space. So general office and kind of public areas. The carpet is on the left, ceiling and lights are on the right, and then all of our general wall paint, door hardware, window treatments are there in the center. And we can come back to this, but I'm just going to flip through it all pretty quickly. This is the proposed system that we want to look at for those glass office fronts. For the rest,
Go back to that just
yeah.
real quick. Okay, so there's the offices, and that looks like is a conference room,
Mhm.
and it's glass all around.
Right, so we will only have, these are our images from the basis of design manufacturer. Our office, or our even conference rooms will just have the front on. It will not wrap around the corner, but general look and feel will be similar to this. For the restrooms, we've gone with a kind of neutral dark tile on the floor, a white kind of standard tile on the wall, dark counters, and mirrors with integral lights in them to just kind of pop a little bit.
So I'm going to ask you something about the sinks.
Yes.
Have you seen the equipment that sits in front of the bowl, where that is, where you can actually get soap, get water, and then dry your hand? Have you seen those?
I have not, actually.
Oh, okay. They're
I will have to
pretty
look
cool.
at that.
It's very sanitary.
Okay.
So there's no, I just check into it. 'Cause have you all
A
seen
lot of
those?
airports have them.
They actually have faucets that actually have the
Yeah.
soap in
They
them,
have soap
the
in 'em.
water, and
then
the
the dryer.
hand dryer.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And it's like a little oval shaped thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it sits just right up there where the sink is, and so you don't have anything on the wall or anything. It's pretty cool.
We will take a look at that. I have seen the kind of sink soap combo. I have not seen it with the dryer.
hand
So,
dryer too.
Yep, hand
so we'll
dryer.
take a look at that.
Dyson.
Can I ask about the material there for the sinks?
Yes.
On the top?
So what we are planning for the restrooms, we have the under counter mounted sinks. Those are easy to keep clean. And then the countertop material is a solid surface, which is it's not a stone, but it's, and it's not exactly a quartz. It's more of a polymer product.
Does it show, I mean, a lot of times black, dark colors like that show a lot of things, like cars, for example.
So and it's a little bit hard to see. It's not just a straight black, it's a black with kind of speckles and stuff in it, so it helps hide some of those water stains or dirt and scratch. Yeah, so anything with a texture to it would hide that a little bit. I think we have talked about an option with a corian, which is, again, not quite a stone, but not quite a polymer, sort of a mix. Some of that comes down to pricing and if we need to change some things. In the corridors, what we are trying to do, since we unfortunately did not find any original hardwood floors in the building, I was very sad when we found that out. We want to try to go back with wood floors where we can, where it makes sense. So in the corridors, potentially in the council chambers, though that might get a little loud, so that's still sort of under discussion. So we may have some wood floors in certain spaces, and in where we do have existing wood base, we want to try to either repair that or replicate it wherever it makes sense.
Is the mayor's office, it has wood floors in it, doesn't
It does.
it? It's just not original.
It is original. So that is the only place in the entire building that does have the original. We were hoping that underneath the carpet and some of the tile and other places that we might find wood floors, but sadly we did not. We need to figure out what we are doing with the mayor's office, since we do have to raise all of that up. What does that mean for the original wood floors? And that will come down to well, I say that'll come down to a budget and scope, but it'll also come down to the tax credit discussion as well.
Elizabeth, how much of the resilient
So
base is used?
The resilient base actually would be used in more of the back of house spaces, not in the corridors or in the main public spaces, but more, that's mainly down on the ground floor level where we have mechanical, electrical, break rooms, stuff like that.
Good.
Speaking of the break room, so what we are planning for throughout the ground floor is a sealed or polished concrete finish. We also are showing kind of that booth banquette seating in the break area, and we want to accentuate that with some fun, colorful fabrics. And then keep everything else on the walls fairly simple. Again, in the break room, and use a similar concept in the copy areas too, is darker laminate cabinets and a lighter counter. This would be a quartz in the any of the more public areas would be quartz, like the pre-function space outside of the conference room, stuff like that. And in the copy areas, it would go back to a solid surface, which is sort of that polymer product. It would be lighter white with I say speckledy because, you know, that's not technical, but that's my technical term for it, speckledy pattern. Again, in the council chambers, trying to keep that very traditional in look and feel, similar to hopefully what the original building might wanted to have been had it housed city council at that time. We would also plan to relocate the plaque that is in there now and put that back in wherever it makes sense to put it in the new council chambers. City clerk's office, again, looking at that sort of ceiling cloud in there just because it's an odd shaped room. Again, with the wood floors in the public space, and then keeping everything fairly simple with the paint colors on the wall. Mayor's office, wood floors, just don't know if those will be original or new, so TBD technically. The picture on the bottom right is actually a current picture of what that space looks like now. So that is what the ceiling looks like. It has that sort of metal crown molding trim up there. It has original wall covering up there, that a couple of layers that have peeled off. We would propose to go back with a wall covering in that space and try to make it kind of reminiscent of what would have been there, though we would not go back with a floral pattern. We are looking at something a little more geometric, in a little bit more contemporary in feel, which is what that image in the middle is. Okay, real quick through structure. Again, I'm gonna put my engineer hat on, and then if you guys have specific questions, I'm gonna let Brian tell you all more about it. You saw this last time. This basically, everything in red highlights sort of our areas of focus for structure in the building. Mainly the floors, the concrete floors in the basement where it's rough concrete, the vault, and taking the wall out to expand council chambers on the first floor, and then expanding the stairs and elevators up to the third floor. When we're looking at the vault, we did a little bit of exploration. We found a giant steel beam that we didn't know was there, that right now bears on that wall that we want to take out. And so we are currently looking at some options there for how to handle that. So this is what happens with renovations. You find something that you didn't know was there, and then you figure out how to deal with it and still make it work. So that is what we are doing. Moving on to building systems, again, no major updates from what we talked about last time. We're getting all new building systems, all new sprinkler, everything in the system-wise. One thing that we, like I mentioned earlier, what we're looking at for exterior lighting is how do we light and really accentuate the exterior of the building. So what we want to do so that to make it easier from an installation standpoint, and also so we're putting lights at the right point, is look at installing lights from the top and shining down to sort of highlight the building, rather than having to put lights every so often on the walls. Look at something that will sort of, at certain spots, you can see up at the cornice around the tower and come down, look at the cornice across the main roof and come down, and anywhere where we have the opportunity to put lights where we have the that sort of bay window that sticks out, put lights under there and come down. And then the same on the other side. So really looking for opportunities so that we can shine light across that front side. We would also look at wrapping that same concept along the side of the tower. I don't know yet how far back that really needs to go. That same concept would need to go along the alley. I think we definitely want some lighting back there. I just don't know that it needs to highlight the brick part of the building like we want to highlight the front stone and tower side of the building. So that is what we're currently working through right now. Any questions on structure or building systems?
Is there a way to see what this looks like at night? I mean, can you do a mock rendering to see where there might be some voids?
Yes.
I mean, because it looks like there might be, you know, I don't know. I mean, you are the expert on this. I don't know.
So yeah, that is actually something that we talked about in our meeting last week is getting this modeled appropriately and then looking at what it would look like at night so that we can see both with the lights on and off inside the building and how, you know, what that looks like outside too and where that light strategy needs to adjust. Okay, real quick on historic tax credits. I have just a few points to make. So I've already pointed out the things, that kind of three major areas that we're going to have to talk with the Historic Preservation Office about. Main things to know, we are going to pursue state tax credits only, not the federal, primarily because the program doesn't really support maximizing federal credits because there isn't a for-profit entity included with the program. This year, the tax credit allotment extends from $5 million for everybody to share to $100 million for everybody to share. So what that means is more projects can receive more credits and you can really do a lot more for your project this way. We plan to submit the Part 1 and Part 2, which are the required application pieces, between the end of this month and mid-September. That then gives Kentucky Heritage Council 4 months to review and provide comments so that we can react to that, build that into the documents, and hopefully know what we're dealing with then before construction starts. The deadline for applications is April 29th. So what's the benefit and everything? Up to 20% of the project cost could be paid for with tax credits, and that's both design and construction costs. The total project cost could be paid for out of that 20% allotment. The ideal process would be to partner with a bank that's familiar with the tax credit process. The bank would then be the broker for the credits. And they like to do it a lot, so that would be a good way to do it. The goal, again, is to know what our allotted percentage is before construction starts to minimize any risk that there would be. Any questions on tax credits?
20% would be good.
It would be
So it's
awesome.
the decision that they make is, number one, if you're eligible, and number two, what percentage you'll be allocated up to a max of 20%.
Correct. And what plays into that is, you know, all the pieces and parts, what is there now, like what's left historically in the building, how are we preserving that, how are we bringing that back, how are we rehabbing, and that's why the roof, the vault, some of those items we may have to shift from what our original intent was, or that may affect the overall percentage we're able to get for tax credits.
There's one more element too. There's the fact that we won't know how much of that $100 million pool is taken up until May, June?
End of April.
April.
Mhm.
April. So we won't, I mean, we'll know that our project is eligible, but the idea of somebody applying for $100 million in a single year, that sounds really not likely.
He said it could be June before they have the final allocation ready.
Yeah. So.
It'll take them a couple months to review all the projects.
But up to 20%?
Up to 20%. And that's why we're trying to get the Part 1 and 2 in early so that we can go ahead and get some comments back from them to figure out what we might need to change to make sure that we are maximizing the amount of those credits that we could get.
And the good news is also, if for some reason they got $110 million worth of applications, everybody gets reduced by the same percentage, so it's not like we just don't get funded.
Now what everybody's been waiting for. Okay, so we got our initial estimate numbers in this morning, and we have sort of outlined everything in buckets. So our construction subtotal right now is roughly $5.8 million. Once you add in the other cost items of doing the work, so the general requirements, the taxes, permits, and bonds, the CM fee, the overhead, and all the contingencies, right now we are landing at almost $7.6 million, which is roughly $383 a square foot. We are holding 8% in for design contingency and 8% in for an estimating contingency. So the hope is that as we move through construction documents and we refine those details a little bit more, then when we do the estimate after that phase, we can reduce those contingency numbers because we have more of the details figured out. There's not as much question as to what it might be. So you typically start with a higher contingency early in the project and you reduce it at each phase as you figure out more of the details. So that's what we would hope to do here. So a few kind of big points. What's not included in that $7.6 million is for the base bid design. The furniture, fixtures, and equipment is not in that. So the office furniture, main equipment will be in there, but any additional equipment we need to talk about, like break room equipment and stuff like that, and how we need to handle that. So those items are not yet in this cost. What does that all mean? It means that your basis of design cost is currently within budget, which may allow for the alternates to be accepted and still be within that overall, what we had initially talked about, $9.1 million budget cost. It also means that a healthy owner contingency should be included for the project. Right now, we did not have a line item in for that. I think it would be a very good idea to have an owner contingency in there as we move into construction. If anything comes up, if anything needs to get added, that contingency will help account for that.
What's normal on that?
You know, it ranges. We have seen as high as 15 to 20%, especially in current market conditions where things are a little crazy. We see on average 8 to 10%. It is usually a good number to shoot for. So it really depends on how comfortable I think we feel with our pricing at the end of construction documents. And that is it.
When you talk about furniture, fixtures, and equipment, how much money that is, since everything's new and modern and different?
Well, part of the question is because we have not talked about furniture yet. Is there anything that is going to be moved over from the existing building? Are there furniture pieces that will be reused? Is there any equipment that will be reused? So those are the discussions that we need to have next.
We sure hope not.
Well, I think he echoed me.
You don't mean, like, when you showed the bathrooms, all of that?
That is included. It's like the refrigerator and the microwave for the break room for the equipment, the furniture, the office furniture, desks, chairs, copier, right. Right.
Now, when we're talking about the credits,
Yes.
will that encompass the total cost
Yes.
of the furniture, fixture, and equipment? and
Yes.
everything?
Does it include furniture? I didn't think it included furniture.
I think part of it depends on, how we're sort of subdividing things. So for instance, the glass office fronts can technically be in the furniture budget if they need to instead of the construction budget. So some of it depends on where you're putting things.
But if
Does
we
that
went
make
out-
sense?
Yeah, if we went out and we bought a desk as part of this, we couldn't really include that as towards 20%, right?
That I need to double check on because they did say technically like all design and construction costs can be covered or you can use that 20% to cover design and construction costs. I will double check on what the construction cost means, if there are.
That was my recollection from our conversation with historic
Okay.
folks, was they said furniture is.
Permanently attached.
It has to be permanently attached,
Right.
yeah, to the building.
Okay.
So, that's just.
So it sounds like that would be excluded then.
So the 7.6 million.
Yes.
Estimate, that includes, just to make sure I understand correctly, basically pretty much gutting the whole entire building.
That's correct.
New wiring, like electrical lines,
Mhm.
telecommunication.
Yep, new everything.
Waterproofing the whole entire facility.
Correct.
But it does not include, earlier on in the presentation, what you were looking at doing on the back stairwell.
Correct.
That does not include that.
Correct. That is still an ad alternate. We have not received pricing on our alternate items yet, so I'm not sure where we land overall picture-wise and what we would be able to accept on the alternate front. We talked about 3 different alternates. Technically, we have 4 because that back site piece is also an alternate. So we have 4 ad alternates to choose from to help manage that cost. But we do need to get pricing on those items to see where we're landing holistically.
When will you have those?
I will check. I do not know.
Up in the top left-hand corner under this construction subtotal,
Mhm.
there's a pretty bad glare over here. Is that 15 months anticipated?
15 months anticipated for the construction. Mhm. And that is primarily because of material availability, making sure that we're allowing enough time to get everything. We're seeing some things, especially on the MEP side, having fairly long lead times. So we want to make sure that we're accounting for that. In normal times, should we be able to do this build within 12 months? Absolutely. But considering where lead times are still heading right now, we want to err on the side of caution and allow enough time for that.
And one other question.
Sure.
I noticed in the bottom right-hand corner, it says 19,807 square feet.
Mhm.
How many, with this proposal, how many extra square feet is that adding as far as where it is now versus?
I think the original building is roughly 15,000. So we're adding that that fourth floor. I'm sorry, the 3rd floor, and then I need to double check that may also include the mezzanine level. I think it's maybe 15,600-ish is what's existing without that 3rd floor. So that is everything that I have. This concludes our presentation.
It was
but-
outstanding, Elizabeth.
but thank you, thank you. But does anybody have any questions?
Just a comment for the council. We've seen so many projects disappoint us when we've seen bids come in. And that's happened routinely of late, that bid estimates have come in just astronomically higher than what our estimates are. I can't tell you how encouraged I am by the report tonight that this late in the process, and with the funnel getting more and more narrow and more accurate, that we still have these numbers. In fact, we've seen numbers that were significantly less than what we thought they may have been, and allow us to not only consider the project, but some of these alternatives can become very real to us. I just couldn't be more excited with this report.
We didn't even talk about where those numbers came from so much.
Oh, we didn't. You're right.
Yeah. Those are construction manager's numbers.
Yes.
So those are the numbers that they've come up with preliminary consultation with their contractors.
They've been on site to do some initial investigation with us, And we've tried to sort of bounce back and forth when they've had questions, just to try to, because, they're working off a set of drawings as we're still moving forward with things. So as things change, we try to send updates. So we've been trying to work with them as we can to provide updates. We will be sending them another updated set in a few weeks to start looking at updated pricing as well, so.
So it's with another 20, up to 20% could still come off some of the numbers that we saw.
Correct.
It's huge.
I'm afraid to ask this question, because I'm a little hesitant to ask this, but because I'm a little afraid of the answer. But as you've been in and around that building over the last 6+ months, maybe over a year now, if we do nothing at all, how bad is it?
If you do nothing to the building?
If we do nothing to the building, I mean, how, you've seen it firsthand, you and your team.
So, I mean, the one thing that I have seen, I mean, we did the existing conditions survey in 2018, so 4 years ago. And when we came back out, when the second phase started and we came back out to look at the building, we noticed significant areas of change outside with more of the limestone spalling and more water issues, and I think a lot more than I had expected to see. So I think if you do nothing, I think there are going to be some serious safety concerns outside the building with larger pieces falling off. And I don't think the building will last nearly as long as it could with the repairs and modernizing it for new use. Did I answer your question? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Then, Elizabeth, if I read these numbers in big picture correctly, and again, big picture numbers, with a successful application for tax credits, we could be looking at an out-of-pocket project cost of $6 million, which is,
That's nice.
that's
Huge.
that's in a range where this is realistically possible. Not only possible, but probably necessary if we continue to hold these types of numbers. Is there any action we need to take tonight, Elizabeth, or are you just looking for feedback from the council?
I do not believe there is any action that we need to take, more so just feedback and wanting to give you all an update so you can see sort of the behind the scenes and what's going on, and stay in the loop with what we've come up with.
Thank you for that, because we do get questions.
Yes.
Oh, good.
And we appreciate that.
We just touch on our remaining timeline and how it may have shifted any.
Right, so initially we had construction documents, trying to submit those at the end of September. I think based on, we're just now looking at our initial pricing. We want to make sure that we have all of the, we have those tax credit discussions, so we know if we need to make some adjustments there. So I think our schedule may shift a couple of weeks, hopefully not more than that, so that we have time to kind of incorporate everything and react. But I don't know that we've actually had any official discussions on schedule changes yet. So what we need to do, I think, is probably regroup and see what is really feasible, and then come back to you guys with what we think makes sense.
I do have a question.
Sure.
Along the lines of Mark, if this was pushed off 2-3 years, what would that look like? Certain prices would probably come down, but on some, or we would hope anyway, but.
I don't know that you will see pricing come down. I mean, pricing on materials, take wood, for instance. Wood had skyrocketed at some point last year and earlier this year, and it has come down. It is not back down to where it was at this same point last summer. So I think even if prices do continue to come down a little bit, I don't think we're going to get back to kind of pre-COVID pricing, essentially. So I think delaying the project from a cost standpoint, it's only going to be more expensive as more time goes by. I think, you know, as I mentioned, just in the last 4 years, the changes that we saw that were noticeable, I think that is going to just compound and get worse. So I think that if you had to wait 2 to 3 years to do the project, in order to, because the pricing's not going to come down, I think you're going to start sacrificing program at that point and maybe not being able to do everything that's included right now unless your budget gets bigger.
Any other questions or comments from council?
Is it possible to get the presentation to the council?
Sure.
Yeah.
We can certainly do that, along with some pictures of the tower. I'm sorry?
This presentation?
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll just forward it's too large to email.
Right, just a link?
We'll just send you the link.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Send the link, and some of those pictures would be, Karen's right, that view is worth preserving.
Mhm.
It should not be blocked off if we can avoid that.
Okay, we'll send those along.
That's really nice.
Thank you.
Looks nice.
Yeah, thank you very
Thank you
much.
all. Appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Let's see, item 10 on our agenda, under city engineer, a municipal order approving contract for concrete construction for the balance of the year. This is our regular unit price efforts, isn't that right, Eddie?
Yes. So it's for your consideration is the contract for goods and services, and specifically for the concrete materials and construction.
Pretty detailed, even with some locations, but the unit prices are there.
Yeah, we have a number of different items that we took bids on a unit price basis. Everything from sidewalks to curb and gutter to storm boxes. So
There a motion for approval?
So moved, Mayor.
Thank you, and that was a second, Tammy. Thank you. If there are no questions for Eddie, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Are there any opposed? Thank you, Eddie.
Thank
Sorry
you.
we made you late.
Thank you.
So late tonight. Under city attorney, we've already covered item number A. Item B is second reading of annexation ordinance for 2300 Cynthiana Road. Tracy?
An ordinance annexing into the city of Georgetown certain real property containing approximately 5.3 acres located on Cynthiana Road in Scott County, Kentucky. Summary: 1, annexes into Georgetown city limits by written consent of the property owner in accordance with KRS 81A 412, approximately 5.3 acres of property located on Cynthiana Road in Scott County, Kentucky. 2, provide for repeal of inconsistent law, several provisions and effective date upon passage of publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the city clerk's office, 100 on Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 43224, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Public introduced and read for the first time August 8, 2022. Publicly read the second time August 22nd, 2022.
Thank you. Is there a motion for approval?
Motion.
Thank you, Karen. And second was Willow. Thank you. If there are no questions, we'll call the roll.
Mrs. Hambrick?
Yes.
Mr. Hampton?
Yes.
Mr. Lusky?
Yes.
Mrs. Leslie Mitchell?
Yes.
Mrs. Tingle Sain?
Yes.
Mr. Showalter?
Yes.
Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Thank you. That is approved. Item C is Chase had made reference to a resolution accepting Cleaner Water Program grant funding.
Motion, Mayor.
That one's easy, isn't it? Thank you. Motion's been made.
Second.
And seconded, Greg. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Thank you. Item 12, under finance, we were due to have a quarterly finance report tonight, but our system went down for 2 days last week. Greg, you can imagine how Stacy
I
felt
know how
about
she feels,
that.
believe me.
She did get all the checks out, but we did not get reports done. So she'll have that finance report for us at the next meeting.
I
and-
hate it when technology does that.
There you go. So that gets us down to council comments. Mark, can we start with you? Okay, Tammy? Good. Todd? Klein?
Just real excited about the PUPA coming, so that's good. Thank you all for doing all the work you've done. I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. David?
Big nightmare, $5 million grant, water company, approved water pressure, that's huge. And then to follow that with a $50 million project at the business park. I mean, I don't know the details on that, but $50 million project is gonna pay a lot of taxes
Yep.
to this community. The school, the county, the city. That's exciting. And then obviously we got good news tonight on the city hall, so thank you for all that.
Yes, sir. Okay.
I have three things. There is a mattress, or at least it was this morning, laying on Terrace Pike between Market Creek Farm and Market Creek Reserve. It's on the side of the road, area. It seems like there are a lot of mattresses laying around. But you could report that. And then the mowing situation out at Pleasant Valley with the homeowners association, the update on what's going on with that.
I am working with Tim, who's mapping out, so they proposed to convert a portion of that to like a managed natural vegetation area. And I told them that we would be glad to hear their proposal for that, but that there would still be some mowing obligations. So Tim is mapping out the absolute mowing obligations, and I've asked them, I think they've actually worked with an arborist already. I've asked kind of for an idea of what they're proposing, because our ordinance for a managed, I forget what, managed vegetation area, it's a very loose, it's loosely worded, so it's kind of hard to determine what it actually contemplates, but it does contemplate a designed area. So I asked for that proposal, and I think Mr. Mattingly actually emailed me back the other day and said that he understood that a portion of it probably could be converted to a natural area. So he's continued to reach out, and I'll keep providing updates still.
Okay, that's good. And then near Pleasant Valley, also another mowing issue, which their HOA should be responsible for. So I guess they would turn to code enforcement if they wanted to. But in their entranceway that goes into Pleasant Valley, that part of it hadn't been mowed. And the gentleman, he actually called me a couple weeks ago, so I called him back today, and he said the HOA is not mowing it, so one of the neighbors from actually one of the other areas came and mowed it. And I said, well, that was a good neighbor. But I said, you actually need to call code enforcement.
Yeah.
If it gets to that point, to call code enforcement, and let code enforcement come out, just like the HOA, correct?
Yeah, neighbors shouldn't be pitted against neighbors, and code enforcement can do that for them.
Yeah.
Particularly if it's the pretty entrance to the subdivision not being maintained, that's not okay.
Okay, so I would tell them to call code enforcement, and that didn't work to call your office, and you get that quicker than coming to call me. That'd be fine.
We'll be glad to help.
Okay, that's it.
Thank you. Greg? Well,
Yeah, what a great meeting, a lot of good news. I attended the Scott County Emergency Planning Committee meeting on August 17th. I don't know if council is fully aware, but they meet quarterly and any other time that they have to try to get all the different agencies together in case there needs to be an emergency response. And there was an emergency response out at Toyota, as you read about in the newspaper, and I just want to give a shout out to Tim Thompson and our fire department and the hazmat team that did an excellent job responding to a sudden and at times chaotic situation, and they just rose to the occasion. Tim did a good job as a new chief, and being at these meetings brings a lot of information from a lot of different quarters, and a lot of things get hashed out. I think it's important to know going forward that Team Rubicon, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of that, but they're a veteran-led organization that when there's any kind of a disaster, they're totally free. They're volunteers that come in, they're professional, they'll muck out houses, they'll clean up debris, they know where to dump things, they come in, they attach themselves to the emergency services that are already in place, and basically you point them in a direction and they take care of it. They're trying to get the word out to municipalities so that they'll be used. They'll even help finish building habitat houses and whatever. So I just wanted that to be a part of the record going forward, Team Rubicon. And they seem like a top-notch, energized organization.
Good. I appreciate you mentioning our first responders' response to the incident at TMMK. I think both Tim Thompson, our fire chief, and Mike Hennigan, head of the County Emergency Management Association,
Yeah.
Worked very well together in that situation. And that situation is being, the fire committee talked about it at some length at their meeting late last week. And that incident is being reviewed in great detail. These incidents are so rare that when they do happen, we have an obligation to look at everyone's performance and communication. There's always room to improve. So we've had those conversations. There have been meetings about this, and this will be a topic. The Judge and I have a meeting with Toyota Management on Wednesday of this week, and we'll drill down into it deeper there too. So it's gotten an appropriate level of attention.
Good. Good to know.
Yes, ma'am. Anything else come before the council? If not, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.